So I'm over here at, I think it's called Clinton Park in East Oakland. I guess this is Little Saigon. On International and 6th. So earlier I was driving down International. I seen some prostitutes, rather unfortunately. I told one of them that she should rethink her life as I drove by. So yes, this is Clinton Park in the city of Oakland. Now I'm going to be talking to you about the Constitution versus the pre-existing American spirit. What is the American spirit at this time? Well, we got to look at the fruits to understand it. What is the spirit? It's a dominant characteristic. It's a prevailing tendency. It's things of this nature. And we've got to do better than the spirits we've seen in the past. We've got to do better than the pre-existing American spirit if America's going to be better, right? So let's look at the characteristics here. We see a lot of greed in the pre-existing spirit, right? Because the spirit is the dominant characteristic. So there's people who are kind of controlling things, and there's people kind of rolling with it. So the dominant characteristic is greed and fear and aggression and lust and chaos and dishonest scales and deception, fraud and denial, fragility, abuse, negligence, shunning, arrogance. There's control freaks, there's sadism, there's trauma, there's shock. The pre-existing spirit comes with a lot of vile sexual control and exploitation. People who are bootlicking also are mixed into the pre-existing spirit. We see there's a lot of sin. There's a lot of scapegoating. A lot of cultural appropriation in the pre-existing spirit. There's a lot of hijacking the social orders of various groups on behalf of globalists and nationalists. There's a lot of destructive and evil and vile characteristics in the pre-existing spirit, which is known as the American spirit. Now, every nation on this planet has these problems. Because of globalism, because of the failed governments, because of the global market, because of geopolitical factors and socioeconomic factors. These things are serious. We see that there's a spirit of destroying the health of the people, including the brain health. And often has, if not always has, epigenetic effects. There's a spirit of sin in general, right? Idolatry. People making slaves. There's a slave master spirit in the spirits, and there's a spirit of people being enslaved. What is the evidence of the spirit? Well, there's 700,000 people homeless in America. I just gave one of them a sandwich not too long ago. 100,000 of the homeless people are children, and 6,000 of them are completely on their own. Between drug overdoses, drug-related deaths and suicides, and a lack of affordable health care and access to health care, we see that 500 people die every day from these preventable deaths. 500 people. There are countless preventable deaths in other ways. If America had really scrambled to do what is right, we would have found a cure for cancer. We would have fixed the healthcare system. We would have gotten to the root cause. What is the root cause of the suicides, the 50,000 suicides a year we see these days? It's the failure of Americans to scramble for what is correct, what is morally precise. It is very heartbreaking to me. That's why I'm out here in Oakland today. I also kept my promise. I said I'm going to come out here because Too Short's brother was killed. And I said I'm going to come out here and I'm going to make some videos out here out of respect for the people of Oakland, out of respect for Too Short, out of respect for his older brother who was killed. So my next point has to do with criminal negligence. To what degree are the American people responsible for their government? Right? They need to scramble to do what's right. Well, first and foremost, the government scrambles to do what's wrong. They have massive social clubs and cults and other groups working around the clock to do what is wrong. People need to scramble to do what is morally precise. You see, the word martial is marital scramble. And I, Christ, am the bridegroom, the top martial artist. Martial also means to order and to arrange. As you see, I try to tell people who I am in various cities in California. Anyway, going back to that criminal negligence point, right? When we see all these people dying from preventable deaths, suicide, right? They're driven to suicide by the policies of the state. They are abused by the state. We see their failure to win the war on drugs, their failure to build rehabs, the failure to really analyze the healthcare system and use critical thinking and deductive reasoning to come up with sound solutions. They're negligent. They're not scrambling to do what's right. To him whom much is given, much is expected. They're given a lot of power. Their social clubs and political parties are given a lot of power. So why do they fail the people to such an extreme? Why are the elitists so narcissistic? Why are they so sadistic? Why have they betrayed the citizens of this country and the inhabitants of the earth in general? You got to ask the right questions and you got to scramble to come to the precise answer. You've got to do what is fair and just and right. You've got to keep the greatest commandment, which is to love each other. How? By obeying the commands, by treating each other fairly, by doing each other justice, by living romantic injustice and insisting on romantic justice. You see, moral, mental, spiritual, and romantic are different components of the same thing. And as the government is criminally negligent, the answer is for people to scramble to do what's right. The answer is for people to organize effectively to do what's right. Stop being misled by controlled opposition. Insist on universal, pinpointed moral precision. Scramble to get your thoughts together. Do what's right. Do what is just. My next point has to do with what can be done here. Well, if the government commits to wealth taxes and vice taxes, they could build lots of rehabs. They could build lots of tiny homes and small homes with a thorough analysis, considering the NIMBY's concerns and deciding effectively where to build. They could build shuttles and use the money they save from not having to clean up homeless encampments to build faster. As Donald Trump added $8.4 trillion to the debt, would it have hurt for him to add 8.5 instead of 8.4 and to build 1 million apartment units for the homeless? Why didn't he do so? Why aren't people committing to do what is fair and just and right? Why aren't people loving each other? Why aren't they scrambling for a precise plan to end homelessness and child hunger and to address the root cause of suicide, the hopelessness that's created by a society that refuses to accept and acknowledge and live the fact that housing is a human right, especially in a country that is so rich like America, with the GDP that America has, the tax revenue, especially in a country with such a large military-industrial sector. The oligarchs have no right to slaughter hundreds of people every day out of sheer negligence. They have no right to turn a blind eye to injustice. They have no right to turn their back on my war on poverty plan. They have no right to cheat me out of my rightful place and thus suppress my war on poverty plan and the commands from God that the government pass my war on poverty plan and that they house the homeless, that they feed the poor, especially the 6,000 children that are totally on their own. My sixth point has to do with victims and aggressors. Drug addicts are victims and they're aggressors to some degree. The domino effect of drug addiction is very serious. Very, very serious. People need to scramble to do what is fair and just and right. They need to see things for what they are. They need to take responsibility, whether they're the most guilty or the least guilty. They need to take responsibility for their actions. When they're part of a collective, a group, they need to take responsibility for their part in the collective. Collective guilt is a real concept. That's why that's why Germany was hit with various forms of punishment collectively after Nazi Germany. It wasn't just the Nuremberg trials. They suffered serious economic, social, and political consequences after they lost the war in World War II. People need to understand what is fair. People need to understand what is just. They need to understand what is right, and they need to live it.